the table is set. So all the place settings are there. Now let me provide the meal, and you guys have that. So that's what ATL. That's what we try to do with our cigars, is to create.
Cigar lounge community is about. It's about sitting down, and it doesn't matter your status, how much money you have or don't have. You know, you sit next to a millionaire smoking a cigar, you're about the cigar. You're about the leaf.
Correct.
You know, nobody's here to downplay or downgrade one another.
That's right.
It's all family. It's all love. Share a story, make connections, and grow.
I want to give you a prompt. I want to give you a prompt for conversation. So a lot of cigars, you're like, man, how does that taste? What is it? What's the name of that cigar? And it's whatever. This gives you a prompt. I'm smoking the Wise Boy. Now tell me about that cigar. Well, here's the makeup of that cigar. Let me tell you about the name of the cigar. So now we can enter into a conversation where if all that is true about what we say about the cigar industry, that you can be a millionaire and a pauper, you can be a white man and a black man. If all that is true, I'm going to test you. Here's the test. Let me tell you the story of the Wise Blood. Now let's talk. Here's the ATL Black. This is black excellence. You're a white millionaire from whatever. I represent black excellence. Now let's talk. So I'm giving you a prompt, an avenue for conversation that exists because the community has already been set. The groundwork has already been laid. So now let me give you a prompt to further that conversation so that we can progress
Bridge them gaps.
to bridge it. Because our community is so different. Like, I mean, Janelle, my wife, Janelle is a Filipino Australian, a woman in the cigar industry. Peter is a tall, lanky white boy full of privilege. I mean, I don't know nobody that got more privilege than that guy. You know what I'm saying? And so when the three of us get together and talk, like Peter is liberal, I'm libertarian. My wife don't care. She's like, I don't want to, listen, I'm not trying to do none of that. You know, I'm a global citizen. You know what I'm saying? I got roots in Australia and in the Philippines. I'm a global citizen. I'm raising my kids to be that way. You know what I'm saying? So y'all fighting about what's going on here in America. I'm thinking about how does this affect the whole world, you know? So when that gets into play, that enters into our conversation around cigars. And we're like, how can we foster that? How can we make that conversation happen in a cigar lounge? Because the table is set. So all the place settings are there. Now let me provide the meal, and you guys have that. So that's what ATL, that's what we try to do with our cigars, is to create amazing smokes, great cigars that allow you to enter into a deeper level of conversation so we can move forward, we can bridge that gap, and hopefully we can go somewhere else. So, the Wise Blood. This is our most, in terms of the story, this is our most controversial cigar, okay? Most controversial. The reason is because The Wise Blood is the name of a novel that was written by a lady named Flannery O'Connor. So she is a celebrated author throughout the world. She's what they call a Southern Gothic writer. So she lived in South Georgia, and she was a white lady who wrote in the 50s, right? She wrote a lot about class, religion, race in her writings. And she wrote a book, her first novel was called Wise Blood. And it was about a young man who wanted to be a preacher. He went to the war, became like disillusioned with faith, and then wanted to kind of like figure his life out. So he moved to the small town in Georgia to figure it out. And so there he did wrestle with faith, he wrestled with race. Like one of the big confrontations he has at the beginning of the book is with a black porter and on a train. So he has this whole argument. So part of the truth of Flannery O'Connor is that she personally wrestled with race. And she made statements throughout her life that were racist, you know? But she produced this beautiful literature that like presented black people. So it's kind of like the way I present it is, I don't know if you ever saw the show Friends, the TV show Friends. Did you ever see that show? Okay. So if you go back and you watch Friends and you look at all the black characters that were on that show, they were always put next to a white person that was acting crazy. And they would always give them like this look, right? Like, what the hell are you doing? And so there was always this juxtaposition between like, you know, this kind of white craziness and this black. And so in Flannery O'Connor's work, she did the same thing. She did the same kind of like, you know, what's going on with this? And so in this book, like the very first character he meets is this black guy, and he's like, man, I know you from my hometown. And this black guy just working. He's like, dude, I don't know you, man. I ain't never seen you before in my life. And he keeps going with it. And the dude is like, man, listen, just go back to your room, and I don't know who you are. But it highlights and shows all is not right with Hazel Motes. Something is off with him. And like that's one of the first pictures that you get in the book is his interaction with this black guy. So like there's this kind of discrepancy in the way that she lives her life, right? In the way that she writes, in the way that she lives. And so when we got this blend and I started working on this cigar and I started smoking it, I was like, man, this cigar reminds me of this book. Like, so there's a conflict in the taste. There's a conflict in the profile of the cigar. It's a very sensitive cigar. It's very susceptible to the environment, like what you're drinking, what you're eating, your company will change the complexity of the cigar. But it also gave me an opportunity, like I say, all of our cigars tell a story and talk about something about Atlanta. And it also gave me the opportunity to talk about Atlanta. And even though we're the city, you know, our motto is Atlanta is the city too busy to hate. But like, that ain't really what it is. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a conflict between what we write and what we say and then how we live our life. And so like this cigar gives me an opportunity and a platform to be able to have that conversation. So there's a lot of shops are like, oh my God, that's a Flannery O'Connor stick. You named it, let me carry that stick. But it's also an opportunity for us to have a conversation about the realities that exist in Atlanta, the realities that exist in our world, that everything is not always as it seems. We still got stuff we need to talk about. We still got things we need to work with, that we need to do. And so this cigar is a way to process that yourself, but also a way for us as we sit around in cigar shops to process that together. So all of our cigars are presented for storytelling purposes, for conversation purposes. So I'm a libertarian, right? Okay. So I'm a libertarian, and John Lewis is firmly Democrat. He is very much that, and we had the last conversation, like real conversation we had, was about successors. Okay. Because my issue was I did not see him raising up anybody to take his place in Congress or in Atlanta. Speak up when he needed to, but there was still a grace that John Lewis spoke with that a lot of people don't have. And I was like, I don't see anybody speaking with that, and particularly a male,
quote unquote, a significant figure who come up to help further the civil rights movement and just get our things that we need for us, basically. And I like that, but the reality of it is just there's no one voice.
That's correct.
There is no one voice. And I don't know at this stage in the game if we need one voice.
You don't need one voice. But the challenge is we've become so politically divided that you need somebody who has the capability of reaching across the aisle
That's
and
important.
getting those other people.
Agreed.
And John Lewis was that person. That's correct.
He still stood on the ground and called it for what it was.
He didn't waver.
No, he didn't.
Right? But
Called it for what it
he
was.
didn't lose that ability to and that's the thing, like that's a politician, right? Like that is the role of a true statesman is the ability to be able to hold to your principles, but yet be able to compromise to get what you need without letting your principles go. And that is a skill that I think is being lost in the strong political divide where everybody is putting in their stakes and this is my team, this is my side. So the ATL Magic was named by our one of our founders, Peter Gross. So there's 3 founders in the company: me, my wife Janelle, and Peter. So when we got this blend, Peter described this blend and said there is a quality about Atlanta that is very difficult to describe, and the only way I can describe it is magic. There is a hustle, there is a grind, but yet there is a beauty, there is a sweetness, there is something that you can't put your finger on that is Atlanta. That comes from. Like the black, that was easy to identify. Like that's black excellence 100%, like all day. The Good Trouble, that's John Lewis 100%. It's accessible, yet it's flavorful. That's John Lewis, that's what you're gonna get. The Magic, that's something effable. That's like that quality that we can't necessarily define, but we know it when we taste it. We know it when we see it. And so that's the ATL Magic. That's what that is.